Okay, guys, we're back for part 3 of building an offensive scheme in Madden 25. And in part 1, we really talked about the importance of being able to run the ball, attacking on the ground, keeping your opponent honest, and really using those very effective run plays in order to establish your offense. And even if it's not, even if you're not a run-first offense, you still need those powerful run plays because the run is so important in Madden. And we talked about pretty much that, so check that out. And then in part 2, we talked about the screens, screen pass, and pretty much anything to do with the screen, whether it be a makeshift screen, a bubble screen, or a regular halfback slip screen. So be sure to check out that as well. Both very important in helping establish your offense. Now, once you have your run and once you have your screens, you definitely need to be able to pass with regular passing plays, whether that be a play action play that you turn into a non-play action play or whatever. It really doesn't matter which play it is, as long as it's something that's going to be effective in beating both man and zone defense. And the key to being able to beat both man and zone defense is having a lot of stuff that can beat both man and zone simultaneously, a lot of different route combinations that can beat both simultaneously. And you always have to account for the fact that there's going to be one guy out there using. So say they're a two-man under, and you know, the quick draw, we would audible that out for, say, the quick base. And if they're giving you a look like this and they're not run committing or anything like that, we would just run in this scenario. But let's just say, so since we've been hitting them with the ground game, maybe they run a two-man under as their stock D, and they start bringing down both of their safeties, kind of doing something like this to try to slow down the ground game. Again, this is the draw, so it's going to get stopped anyways. But let's just say they start sacrificing both their safeties to stop the ground game. Then we're going to really want to start passing. Or if they start making the adjustments to stop the run and stop the screen, then we're really going to need to start passing and really be effective in our passing. So some routes that are definitely going to be effective for you are going to be smart out routes. Let's try to close this up. There we go. So smart out routes, if they don't shade their coverage, he's going to be open. Also, if either shaded coverage or a hook zone or sometimes a purple will stop it, but those are going to be the three things that stop it. Also, if they have backed up coverage, even if he's like right here, he's not going to cover it pretty much no matter what they put him in, even if they shade and even if they put him in a zone. So if they have backed off coverage, the only defenders you really have to watch for are going to be the underneath defenders. Say, for instance, if you know, they have Reed down in this area, he's in the purple. Sometimes the defensive end will get there. If they have a linebacker in this area and he goes to make a play over there, otherwise that 10 and out is going to be money. So that's, you know, one of the most money routes right there that is just real easy, simple, and effective. That works well. The curl route also works, and you can combine that with a curl flat concept, and those are going to work great against zone and man again. Pretty much throw it the same way. It's just a bullet pass before he makes his break. Another route that's really effective against man defense is going to be the halfback option route. No matter what kind of man defense they play, he's going to always make that break to the outside. And then once he does, 9 times out of 10, he's going to separate from his man. You got these stick and nod routes, and there are other stock routes that are very good in the game. So when you're looking for your passing plays, always try to find a play that has 1 or 2 routes that you can't make yourself. Because let's say, for instance, we come out in this play here. Yes, we have an option route from Nelson, so that may be decent, but everything else we can pretty much make. Cobb's just on an out, Boykin's on a fade, and Jones is on a slant. We can make all those routes. So really, there's nothing on this play that's just like, okay, we need to really run this play specifically. Whereas if you go with the PA wide receiver in, you can't make this skinny post from Boykins. You can't make this wheel from Cobb. And even though this route from Jones is similar to a 10 and in, it does run quite a bit differently. So even that route we can't make. The big difference here between that and a regular 10 and in is going to be if he gets pressed, and he doesn't get pressed there. So, you know, those subtle differences are the things that you can't replicate with the hot route. So you always got to be thinking, okay, can I hot route this route? Can I get this effect? And if not, that's definitely a play more so that you're going to want to look at more than anything else. So this 10 and out it's going to be effective. Whereas if we do a smart route attendant out, which works pretty well, he's going to get pressed at the line. And even though he may get open or may not, either way, as we've seen from the previous example, that that awkward in route was a lot better option for us. So we had 3 routes on that play that we couldn't create, and then we were able to pretty much do whatever we want with Nelson. So this would actually be a really good play. I also like play actions because they tend to block better. But you can run a play like this, maybe put Harris on a streak here, maybe put Harris on an option route, Nelson on a zig, or something like that. And the zig route's definitely a good option to beat man defense, especially from the tight end spot or from the very inside receivers. A lot of the times they're going to beat their man pretty consistently once they make that break back outside. And it's not a huge gain, but it's definitely one that their opponent's going to have to respect. So that's definitely a go-to route right there. You got these halfbacks on streaks. Those can be decent, not something that's going to be amazing, but sometimes you can beat the defender over the top, or if they're blitzing or something like that, and sometimes you can just hit the halfback quickly there. Again, that would be a risky play, not one that I would make because you got Patrick Willis coming in for a big hit. And if you're only going to gain 3 yards, it's really not worth the Patrick Willis big hit right there, given that scenario. And those are pretty much a lot of the stock routes right there that are effective. You also have slant routes that can be effective in their own right. They can beat man defense pretty consistently too, especially if you run like a play action. For some reason, the dudes, they seem to get a little bit more open when you run slants and things like that. So, try to incorporate some of these routes into the plays that have like a stock route like this stick and nod route from Nelson. You can't recreate that. So, you work around that, get everybody else on something that's going to work effectively for them. And then once you got that route going with the rest of the routes, you're going to have a pretty solid passing play that's going to be difficult to stop. Now, if you're still struggling with that, I have a series on the Madden Mastermind channel where I give a money play every week, every Thursday, and from various playbooks. So if you're still struggling with that, there's a bunch of examples in that series over there. I will leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. But I basically just go through individual plays and just kind of give you guys examples of plays that I would use if I were to use a scheme out of that playbook. But hopefully this gives you guys a good idea about all the routes that are going to beat man defense. Now, as far as beating zone defense, it's going to be, a lot of those same routes are going to work. So let's go back to this pack trip and find the stick and nod play. And this time we'll just go with a cover 3. And the reason you want to be able to beat man and zone defense is because this year it's a lot easier to disguise your defense just with the base aligning, the man aligning. And if you're playing somebody good, they'll be able to pretty much disguise their max coverage, their blitz, their man, their zone. They'll pretty much make everything look pretty close to similar. So it's going to be harder to tell pre-snap what you're going up against, which is always a good thing defensively for the game. But still, nonetheless, even if you don't know specifically exactly what they're doing, although you should be trying to pick up on what they're doing over the course of the game, you still will have viable options because you want to make sure every receiver is a target on every play. Maybe one guy's a diversion, and usually if I have a diversion receiver, it's going to be a streak. In which case, if given the right scenario, if he beats his man deep, or if they run some man press and they move that safety, or whatever the case may be, and that guy's open, definitely going to hit him over the top for a real big play. So it just kind of depends. You gotta pick your spots when you're gonna go over the top. 2 things with going over the top though. If obviously you want to have your faster receiver going over the top most of the time. But 2 things with it. 1, clock management. If it's a scenario where there's a minute and a half left, as a defense, I don't mind if you score quickly, with like a one-time play and leave me with a minute and, 20 seconds left with some timeouts because that's going to be more than enough time for me to score. So if you're trying to get that last score of the drive, just be careful when you go over the top. That may not be the best time to do that. Also, don't think that only fast wide receivers can go over the top. Tight ends can get over the top pretty consistently because a lot of the times they're going to get a linebacker matched up on them. And if there's no safety help, most of the linebackers in the game are going to get burned. I understand most people use the Niners and Seahawks, but if you're using Vernon Davis, he will burn one of the linebackers from those teams just because of how the game is. Because once he gets that step on him, he'll just separate slightly because they have equal speed, and he'll be good to go there. So now we're looking at beating these zone defenses now. Again, more so than anything, again, we're going to have the same routes that we do against man defense. And like I said before, that smart out, even if they're in zone, it's not going to matter if the defense is backed up like that. You just got to watch for the underneath guys. So let's say now that they're pressing up on the line because we're hitting them with the 10 and out, and they're trying to actually stop the smart out route, you can still, again, get, effective with the other routes out there. You just got to make sure you got routes that complement one another. So let's say if there's a stick and nod here, and they run something like this, maybe I'm going to send the halfback on a streak up here, and then Cobb on a drag. And this way, we're going to really attack the middle of the field and really force them to cover 3 parts of the middle of the field, which is going to be very difficult to do for any zone defense specifically, or even man defense itself. So let's go ahead and do this again. Set it up. Let's base a line. So basically, another thing that a lot of people don't do is check down and have a lot of check down routes like drags and zigs and just in routes and out routes and just little simple stuff like that, you combine that with other effective routes, and you're really going to put yourself in a position to be able to attack the defense in a multitude of ways. And that's basically going to set you up to be able to attack both man and zone defenses. And it's also going to help you avoid getting sacked, giving the defense a big play, throwing interceptions, things like that, things that you really just can't afford to have happen. So when you're passing the ball, especially if you've got a good ground attack, there's no reason to force a risky 50-50 ball in there. For instance, like a streak from last year where you would go ahead and use or catch that. Yes, you can get them to work, but it's not something I would recommend doing in this year's game just because it's not consistent enough for one, and the defense plays it so much better that sometimes they will go ahead and jump it and get the interception. So it's just not something that's worth the risk. The risk reward there is really not worth it unless it's like towards the end of the game. And you really got to force something deep downfield. But otherwise, it's not something that you're going to want to do. You're really going to want to just stick with very safe, very conservative, not conservative, but safe passes, stuff that you know that's going to work and be open, and stuff, again, that's going to work consistently. It's all about consistency on offense. You don't want to have a route that only gets open 1 out of 10 times, be your main route on a play. You want to get a route that, like a 10 and out, is going to get open every single time unless they do something specific to stop it. Or if you run a zig here, only certain things are going to stop that zig, like a flat zone out there will stop that zig. But it's just one of those things where you got to pick what's going to go together and what's going to beat every kind of defense. So you make sure you got some man beaters out there, make sure you got some zone beaters out there, and make sure you know how the routes are going to complement one another. So, for instance, this option route is great against man defense, but against zone defense, what he's going to do is do a curl. And that's a good thing, but now if I put Cobb on a drag here like we did in that last example, it's kind of going to mess it up for Cobb. So you're going to see what I'm talking about here. He's got there, now he's kind of sitting in that area, and look, Cobb's unable to get open. Now this time we'll do the exact same thing. This time we'll have Harris on a wheel, and you'll notice that Cobb's going to be open in that spot. So those are the types of little things you just have to pair together when you're putting together a scheme, is that you have to make sure the routes complement one another and none of them mess each other up. However, if I put Cobb on a comeback here, and then I put Cobb on the in route and Harris on the option, now this should open up things for Nelson in that second line. So it really just depends who you want to get open and how deep down the field you want to get them open. But when you're putting together an offensive scheme, just try to keep some of these ideas in your head. And if you're still struggling, again, check out that series. I got a lot of great examples of some plays in there, from runs to passes. But that's going to pretty much wrap it up for putting together a scheme. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. The last thing I should say whenever you're building a scheme is understand your team personnel. Do you have good tight ends? Do you have good wide receivers? Are they fast? Are they possession? Is your running back, how good is he? Is he elite? Does he break tackles? Is he able to catch the ball? Is your quarterback a mobile QB? Do you have a RG3 or do you have a Peyton Manning type QB? You know, your offense is going to vary depending upon those types of things as well. So kind of keep those in mind whenever you're putting together a scheme as well. But that's going to wrap it up and be the end of this series. Real short series, short and sweet. And again, any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I want to thank you guys for sticking through with me, and hopefully you enjoyed this series throughout. And that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. It's your boy Monster Chappie. We gone.